All right, Vaughn, Tebi. I'm still gonna get used to calling, but I definitely prefer Vaughn.
Yeah.
And you look like a Vaughn, by
They're
the way.
like the thing is that the username or like the alias
Yeah,
is actually pronounced Tebilu. It's
Tebilu.
like sort of like a verlan. It's kind of like a type of French that's like illustration de Tebi, and
Okay,
it's just a weird mix of that. So that's
nice,
where it comes from.
nice. Because I saw on your YouTube name, it's a little bit different. It's like elongated.
Yeah, yeah, Tebilu and assorted. So that's why the handle is Tebilu assorted because I couldn't get
Can I get
Tebilu
it?
and assorted.
That's actually a good place to start. Where did that name come from? If you don't mind sharing.
Um, I had a for some reason my name or for some reason that name came from like it's a weird like morph of the name Taboo from Black Eyed Peas. It's
Okay.
actually where it came from, and like my first what's it called? My first USB stick, I named it Taboo, and then slowly I started like my first cartoons were my first YouTube username was under the name Taboo Dudo 45, and Dudo is a was like a thing that I came up with when I was making like stuff on like Flipnote, and then there was that turned into like Vonnie Thibault, that and which turned into Lonnie Von Thibault, which turned into Lonnie Von T. And like, there's a lot of people. There are a few people in Toronto who will still call me Lonnie.
Okay.
And then after that, it turned into Tebi Lou because I decided to say, I guess like illustrate like Tebi's illustrations or like Thibault's illustrations, but I guess it's like a just
Oh,
makes it
I see
easier.
it. I see it. That's really nice. It had like an evolution. An
Yeah, no,
evolution.
it's I've used that name. I've been using like the aliases and stuff. Like I've been making cartoons since I was like 10. I've been making cartoons since like 2010.
Oh wow.
So like I've just been slowly growing that name. I think Dudo was like a name I came up with when I was like 9.
No way. No way.
Yeah.
Were you? I'm assuming, but were you a gamer at all with consoles or
Mhm.
PC?
Like not well, when I was a kid, I was more of a person who liked television. Like I liked like actual like programming blocks and stuff like that.
Nice.
And I would treat like the video games that I played as an extension of the programming block. So it'd just be like, oh, here's like 30 minutes of time that of playing a game that's just like watching like a TV show. And eventually that when that disappeared because like all my games were basically like all my games I stopped being able to play all my games when I was like around like 9 or 10.
Okay.
So I wasn't so I just slowly ended up going back into or I started focusing more on I guess TV or whatnot.
Nice. I asked because like for me, I throughout like my game history, whether it's on PC or consoles, like I've had like one usually, and I thought maybe you've had the same. Like I had like, and even for YouTube, I
Oh,
had like
I
one.
the PS2 and then the DS.
Nice.
Those are mine. I tried to play the DS actually like 2 years ago. I tried to get into like games again, but then I didn't get around. I was focused on making other stuff.
I get
So
it.
yeah.
I get it. So would you say you're? I'm assuming you're a campaign guy. If you were looking at video games as like a television program block, then I feel like you would probably prefer the campaign and online or multiplayer wasn't really your thing.
Oh, and I guess so. Yeah, no, like I played a lot of RPGs
Oh
when
yeah.
I was
Okay.
yeah. So like all the games were like I like Pac-Man and Digimon and Pokemon games and stuff
Digimon.
like
Oh
that.
man, I
And
love
like
Digimon.
one of my favorite games I think about a lot is the PS2 game Ape Escape 2.
Ape Escape. I
The
don't know
first
that
time I
one.
played that game, I think I was like 5 years old, and it was at a Blue Jays game. It was outside at the end of a Blue Jays game when they had like the video game section like back in the day.
Nice, nice. Um, Yeah, I'm starting to create a bit of a vision and understanding of you, especially when you mentioned that like the television block. Um, Tell me about animation because it seems like animation is you, like it has you written all over it, or
Yeah.
maybe animation you have animation written all over you. Tell me why animation, and maybe explain what type of animation, right? Because there's different type
Oh
of
yeah.
animation. What did like how did that meeting start with the concept of animation? Why did you approach it? What do you like? Are you why are you good at it and all of that stuff?
Yeah. I yeah, no, I liked watching a lot of cartoons, and I think what it was actually that when I started watching cartoons, they started making cartoons with flash animation, and I really didn't like that. So I started making it a point to like come up with ideas in my head that would be like drawn like in a I guess in a traditional hand drawn way.
Right.
And then eventually I started making those cartoons, and I started making those cartoons because I guess I could.
Like storyboards? Is that
No, like full cartoon. Like I would make stuff. When I first started, I was making stuff through like Flipnote Hatena,
okay?
but yeah, Flipnote Studio, and I didn't get to do Flipnote Hatena then, but yeah, I was doing that, and I like had a bunch of cartoons like saved on like an SD card that I used to the DSi, and
Nice.
then eventually I moved to doing like actual films that I put on that I burned to like a DVD as a kid.
Okay, okay. What was? Do you remember your very first animation? What was
Oh
it?
yeah, it. So my first film was called Sparky and Clyde. I started it. I was really into Ren and Stimpy, and then yeah, I got into Ren and Stimpy at early like 2010, and then I started really loving the way it was drawn. And I think there was one. I wonder if there was one episode that's like about the animation process that I really like took to. Like there was a bunch of other factors. Previously being like I was before that I got into Dragon Ball Z, and it was the first time where I noticed that like the old cartoons like they were drawn on like or the like the animation jitter. They would have animation jitter, and like you'd have like cells that would move and stuff. And I like started learning about the process. And after I got into Ren and Stimpy, I learned about the process some more, and it was a mix of what's it called? It was a mix of the Ren and Stimpy pilot and the movie Hotel for Dogs that inspired my first film. It inspired that first film, Sparky and Clyde. And I decided that I would make it for like a school or no, like a school region film festival. That was what was the impetus to make it. I guess I just decided that like I should make it for this deadline,
Right.
and I like did that. I completed it, although I think I was like too young for that thing because I think it was for high school students.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So for someone who like I love animation, I love anime, like I love that stuff, but I find it really hard to find the definition of animation. Like if you can define what animation is, especially in terms of like what you work on, right? Like for example, Dragon Ball, right? Dragon Ball Z would be
Yeah.
considered animation, right? Uh, you know those like in school we used to draw in those post-it notes. Used to draw like a dog running or like a person
Yeah. Yeah.
running.
Flip note.
Is that
Flip.
exactly flip note? That's
Flip
considered
books. Flip books. Yeah.
flip book. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's considered an animation, right? Then you have
Yeah.
manga, which isn't really it's manga, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not animation. And then there's comics, right?
Yeah.
Where does so one is film, right, and one is stills. But
Yeah.
also you think of like YTV, right? For us from the Canadian world or family, they used to have these different, but they're different. Like I think they're different. There's different levels of animation and what defines an animation.
Uh, I guess to me, like the when I'm thinking of animation, I'm thinking of animated film. I mean, it evolved from like flip books and like stuff that are basically like akin to flip books that
Yeah.
like they would spin around in zoetropes and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like, do you know what I'm thinking? Remember the Apple ads from like 2006? Like the
Yes, yes.
is that animation?
Those are yes. It's a type of animation. It's called rotoscope.
Okay.
So like rotoscope, you would just yeah draw over like live action footage, and like there's a there's some old cartoons that did that very well. This guy named Max Fleischer,
Okay.
and Max Fleischer and I think Dave Fleischer too. I'm not sure if they went into business together later, like in the 30s, but like through the 1910s and 1920s, like he made a series called Coco the Clown,
Okay.
and those films were primarily rotoscoped, made that same way, and they also like did a lot of like I guess more complex rotoscoping in like the Betty Boop cartoons that they would do in the early 30s.
Right, right, right. Okay, okay. So I think
Yeah.
I'm starting to gather my mind around it. Um, are you self-taught? Uh,
Yeah.
and,
I went to Sheridan for like 3 months.
and by the way, would you be called? Because I know you call yourself like is it? Are you an animator or cartoonist, a
Huh?
filmmaker, or all of the
Yeah,
above?
I don't know. I've stopped using I've stopped using like
The titles.
these yeah. I I mean like when I get passionate I about things, I guess it's somewhere between cartoonist and filmmaker. And I like more think of like cartoonist in the sense of like an artist who is satirical, and that's where the inspiration to refer to like oneself as a cartoonist comes from. And that's like sort of an influence from like what I learned from the Animation Resources website, and then also like Ralph Bakshi and his films.
Interesting.
And yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Let me interrupt
Oh
you.
no, I'm partly saying like because I know this is gonna go online. I'm kind of just like seeding in like very low key detail, very low key stuff. So like
I love this though. I love
yeah,
this. I'm gathering information that I could have never found any other way in my life.
yeah.
But this is so cool because like I wanted to ask you if you were to look at maybe not your first animation, but maybe when you started to mature a little bit. So I would say maybe when you
Oh
were
yeah.
15, 16, compared to like your most recent work. Like maybe tell me a little bit about both and the
So
style.
I can say this the very start of the account that's known as like Tebi Luna Sorted now.
Yeah.
So like I started that as that was when I switched like properly to digital animation, and I would work with like a what's it called, like a drawing tablet, and those were nice. Like my first films was with a series named my first films for that was a series named University Kids, and I did that with my cousin or like a family friend. His name is Adrian, and we made those films together, and he would be like a voice actor on it, and he would also write the plots. Actually, yeah, like we would write everything together. Like I think the cartoons from that series that came out, there were like 3 out of 5 that were finished and released, and those 3 were the ones that he had written actually,
Right.
and they were yeah, no, it was those were fun. Like you're asking about the comparison between those ones and the one
Yeah,
that
I want to know like if you were to kind of judge your most recent work with maybe the work when you were like 16, 17, where you're just sort of starting to mature a little bit in your
Mhm.
style and finding your way with the tools and expression. What are the difference or not difference? I don't want to put this as like I want you to compare. I like seeing because I look at my work
Mhm.
in general and I like to see how much it evolves. You don't feel it,
Yeah,
but you look back at something you did even like 3 months ago compared
yeah,
to what
yeah,
you're doing now, and even though it feels the same when you're doing it, the end result is completely different sometimes.
yeah.
So I'm wondering, I'm pretty sure that's got to be huge
Yeah, yeah.
for you.
It was a nice process. I think I started getting into my own like when I was So I made those cartoons when I was like 13 and 14.
Yeah.
When I was like 15, I started really getting into my own because I started like getting into like getting really understanding like I started learning about hip hop
Okay.
or like the hip hop culture, and like I started taking in like the very technical aspects of hip hop. So I would like understand because of my understanding of animation as like, oh, animation is seeded from cartooning and just like the evolution of like all types of like cartooning and like acting from film and stuff. To me, like hip hop was like poetry and basically like how to morph like, or basically like the sampling aspect was interesting. There's like the poetry aspect. There was like me learning about Basquiat as well,
Okay.
and like the more abstract understandings of things, and I guess it helped influence like the work that I was doing at that time. And so like my primary way of making films as a result is, if I'm especially if I'm really in the mode, like is writing poems.
Mm.
So like I'll write a poem or like a dialogue that will like explain the or that will like actually be the thing that I follow, and I'll, I guess, write a storyboard to it, and then I work within the I work within the boundaries of like how fast can I make this cartoon. So like the first real series that I had made like by myself was a series called The Messenger when I was like 15, and that was the cartoon that was when I started doing all of those things in tandem, like focusing on like writing the stories via poetry, like the how to make like efficient and compelling designs, and then also like the sound design and like the creative and just like the general creative direction. And what's interesting, like I guess I sort of kept on, I'd say that in comparison to the my most recent films, I almost say I was figuring out how to do the same thing very well. At least I don't remember I don't remember that much of a change between. I think I got better at telling the stories. I think I got better at the peripheral details, such as like writing
Mm.
and like just pacing in general. Like I would reference like a big influence in my films were like the you'd call it, well, people would call it like the Hollywood new wave, like the American new wave. So it'd be like 60s early 70s films that are like slow paced. Like I figured out like what kind of direction that I want my films to show, or like to, I guess, be thematically. And like actually the reason why I got into tech was because I wanted to figure out like how to provide more I guess, what is it called, production value with like in less time with like, I guess, better details, like when I like diffusion being a good example. Like one of the first things I did with diffusion would be like figure out how to add how like I would basically provide like animation samples from places and put it and like filter it, basically what do they call like style transfer. And that's when I've been trying to figure out how to, or like largely when it comes to films, like I'm trying to figure out how to do style transfer now, so then I can make better I can make cartoons with more production value, because like the thing with my films, at least as they were, at least as yeah, at least as they are, were, is that like I was, I guess I was getting tired by myself of like the, what's it called, like the flat designs and the flat and abstract designs. And in my, as the films, at least especially in the last proper film that I made, which was part of a series called Inspector Tommy, it's called Taxi Rides. That one was, I guess, it's supposed to, like, in some sense supposed to be like a sort of interlude, or sort of like a hint at of the kind of cartoons I'm trying to get at now. So that has scenes which are full colored, that has scene that is like very quiet, that has scenes that are very quietly paced, that also has like, that also, I'm sort of losing track of what I'm saying, but yeah, I, it basically has that, like, hints of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
And like the way that the fully colored scenes are in there is actually a reference to like manga, because if you like read things like if you read Dragon Ball, for example, like they'll have fully colored sections, and I think it's partly because they wanted to, like when you're, most manga is just white and black, but like if they want to do a special, like, I guess few in the past, I guess in the 80s and 90s, it was like the first few pages they were like full color.
Yeah.
And now it's more relegated to like, I guess, poster pages and stuff like that, like 2-page spreads and stuff. So like that was what inspired those. That was what inspired like how I would introduce the color, like full color, into those scenes. But yeah, no, I'm trying to basically, I maybe between like 2014, 15 and now, it's more that I am trying, I realized I had done the style that I was doing there for like long enough of a period, that I wanted to do something new, or that I wanted to do something different. And now I'm trying to figure out, like, I guess the whole structure behind how I would do it.
Interesting. And so
Yeah.
so as you're speaking, like I'm starting to see like there's a lot of aspects to this. So essentially, to me, I never. This is the first time I'm thinking about what an animator and a filmmaker in animation has to do.
Mhm.
So you do everything. So from the story, right, the actual writing, which think of it like a book, right? So you're writing a book first, and I want to ask about your process. Do you start with the visuals first, and then go to the story, or is the story first, or is there something else that I'm not thinking of? How do
I
you
feel
start a
like
story?
I feel like it can be either way, but I think, no, I write a lot, but then what it is that the I can't really, at this point I can't really get to like wanting to make an like an animated film out of something yet, unless I can like immediately see how it is visually in my head. If I can like, so like I'll have to be excited enough I have to be excited enough by an idea to actually draw it
Interesting.
before I decide that, oh, this is an idea that I'll like actually focus on.
How close are the ideas that come to you? You see it from that moment until the finished product. How similar are those two? Does it change? Does it grow? Or is it the bones are the same, but maybe just the aesthetics change a little bit? Or the not
I
aesthetics, but
think
the
it.
externals.
I think the aesthetics are. I think the aesthetics are partly driven by, like, I try to keep it the the vision as this. I try to keep the ideas the same, as similar as possible to the original concept, but I I think if anything changes, it's somewhere between the it's somewhere between like it might less be that I want to figure out how to do things and just get it done
Yeah.
versus like my being excited, or I will focus on every part of the process just as one like as if they're their own process. Like I really one thing that I really like is that like I try to make it so that everything can exist on its own. So like I'll do the music, and the sound design will be something that I can listen to on my own. I'll do the voice acting, and it will and like all basically all the parts need to work together and like pull their own weight. Like it's kind of like a jazz band, or the animation studio system of like the or like well how it was in the in like the 30s and 40s for animation, or at least how it was run in Warner Brothers, like for the Looney Tunes cartoons.
Yeah. How?
So
Oh,
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I no, I think I was gonna. I think I was probably just gonna continue being like, yeah, no, every
That's
part
why
just.
you don't interrupt an artist. I'm so sorry. I had this question. I don't want to forget, and it blurred out. So sorry again for interrupting. But
No, go ahead.
how long, like, on average, or not average, but animations aren't 2 hours, right? They're not 1 hour and a half like movies generally are, or maybe they are. Like, tell me a bit about the length of animation, and maybe your animation specifically. How long
You
do they
mean
run?
like how long are my films, or how long are had those the production?
The production was gonna be next. Like, how long it
Oh
takes you
yeah,
to actually produce it. But I want to know, like, just about the film itself, right? Because the only my knowledge from animation comes strictly from watching anime, and they're usually
yeah,
series. I've never really watched movies, unless you count like Spirited Away, which is a full on movie. The
yeah,
rest have been like Naruto, like that kind of thing is what I've, and those are series, right? They're like 1 hour long, I guess, or 50 minutes without the ads. So I'm thinking,
yeah.
like, when the animations that you work, what length are they, and how do you go about that? Is there a limitation to you saying, oh, I need this to be 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or is it when the story's done?
I think I try to like. Oh yeah, like I try to make it. I try to make it like a decent length. Like one thing I noticed is that there was one thing I noticed was that like when I started making films more efficient, I started making films more efficiently. I think again when I was like 19 or 20. So that so the films that I made were generally they generally end up going to like 4 to 6 minutes or something like that.
Okay.
And then I had the early cartoon like that particular one was part of there was the one where like the better project that fits that set was a cartoon called Skaters,
Okay.
and then one then for the last cartoon in the series that I did, Inspector Tommy, it was actually a challenge for me to make films like a minute and 30 seconds like for Instagram, because like I was making them for Instagram, and my entire my social network was on Instagram at the time.
Yeah.
But then I stopped caring about that, and I tried to make I and the last films that I did for Inspector Tommy were they were they were split up in some sense into like 4 to 7 minute chunks, but the last three cartoons that I did for Inspector Tommy were it was like 7 minutes, um 20 minutes, and then 13 minutes, and I tried to make them as I think I tried to make them long because I liked just, I like the aspect of like caring about sitting down and like watching like films and stuff like that. Like I guess I was really tired of. I really stopped liking like the fast attention span thing.
Yeah.
So I was just like rebelling against that and being like, "Fuck you! Here's long films."
I can definitely relate to that for sure. I
Yeah,
have a few questions I'm gonna go back to, but I want to ask this: do you watch your own animations?
I I do if I'm in like the mode. I do if I'm in if I, especially if I'm watching, especially if I'm in like in production mode. Like I'll watch
No, I mean
them.
after. I mean after.
Oh,
As a consumer.
sometimes I do. It's sort of like I try not to because I do like my I do like the work that I have done, and then I'll end up like watching it like too much. I feel like yeah, like I like what I if I decide to yeah, no, I generally like to watch like the films, but I don't think it's a good idea to watch my work too much. It feels like there's like I like you it feels bad in some spiritual way. It feels like narcissistic
Feels
or not
perverse.
narcissistic, but like reminds me of like it reminds me of some like story about like a person who like keeps on looking in the mirror too much. I'm not sure Dorian Gray or Narcissus or something like that. So I don't
I
like to
heard
the
that.
so like I don't want to get too caught up in and then I'll just make the films and then I will like just focus on the next thing, I guess.
But if you didn't have that, like if you weren't worried about narcissism and all that, you would watch your
Oh yeah.
your
Well,
stuff.
like I would the I guess to a point where like there's a lot of films on the YouTube channel. There are a lot of videos on the YouTube channel which are like programming blocks.
Yeah.
And so like I'll just package my cartoons with some older cartoons
Nice.
in the programming blocks, and I would that's another way of watching them that's another way of watching them as well.
Nice.
Like at least I would sort of feel it that way. Like there are films that I've made that I like enough that I will show them like that I'll repackage them or like I'll show them like publicly a lot. Like I'll feel comfortable showing them and I'll be like, yeah, this is something that I like.
Nice. Tell me about the production now. How long does it take you to make one of your films? Or maybe tell me how long it's taken. Is it like a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months? And maybe tell me in work hours too. Like I'd love to know how
Yeah,
much work hours going into this.
it's interesting because it's like so I'd say it takes. What's interesting is that I've learned how to set up the before I like started like making tools for myself, which is actually like born of like a different which is born of like a situation where I lost like the tools that I had to make cartoons. I was able to get. I was like so in tune with the Toon Boom software that I was able to like figure out how to make like films efficiently in, let's say, I could get the production cycle down to a week or something, like a
Okay.
week or 2 weeks or something like that. And there was even a point where, and this like burned me out heavily. So like when I was like 20, I like came up with a thing where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make films like I'm gonna make a cartoon. It was like the cartoons were like Instagram length,
Yeah.
like Inspector Tommy,
Yeah.
but it was like, yeah, I'm gonna make like films. I'm gonna make one episode of this thing a day, and we're gonna keep like. I love the idea of like production schedules and lead time. So I was like, I'm gonna give myself like a 2 week lead time, and I'm gonna make this thing that's supposed to come out with a new episode like every every weekday, like every 5 days, like 5 days a week. So like and it would be kind of almost like an extension of like a newspaper strip,
Wow.
but just cartoon form. And it would I managed to like make the process efficient so that I could so they would be like more like storyboards, and I would do that every day, and I did that for like 3 weeks, and I went on a trip, or I like went to, yeah, I like left my desk for like a bit, and then I wasn't able to draw for like 4 months.
Wow.
I wasn't able to like I like burned out, and then COVID happened, so like I wasn't able to like capitalize on that.
Right.
But yeah, no, but I just started like practicing, and slowly I was able to get around to like making films again. And but yeah, the production process for animation would be, I would say, like a week or 2 weeks for my films, and it's because they're simple. It's because like I make them that way, and like they're inspired by like limited. They're inspired like by limited animation to be like more simple to do. And then like I'll spend maybe like around, I can say like maybe around a year on on a project.
Oh wow.
So like I'll focus on a concept for like, it seems to be like around a year. Like I'll come up with an idea, and then I'll like do the storyboards. And the storyboards, I will give it its time. So especially as the days have gone by, especially since as like I figured out like the way that I work, like I'll let myself come up with a storyboard like in a more relaxed but like still like consistent time period. So like a good example would be like I came up with the storyboard for, I think the penultimate, the second last Tommy cartoon, Proxy. I think I did that storyboard in like 3 weeks or something like that. And then I've done other storyboards in, I guess, I get storyboard period. Actually, yeah, the storyboard period sort of like, I guess that can take a week at its best, and then I'll do like a animation for like a week. Like animation takes less time than storyboard, I would say. That's what I would say. It would like animation would take like probably like half to a quarter of the time of storyboard, because storyboard is like figuring out the composition, and then animation is just like bringing those things to motion.
So you've done the production, right? So
Yeah,
you've made it. How do you distribute animation films in 2026?
that's the thing. I'm figuring out how to do that well. I think and like I have a lot of things that I need to try. And the main thing that I would say is like consistent screenings. Like for people who are like, for people who are for like people who are listening to this, who would be like working on films and stuff, like the actual strategy would be to go and make film would be to release films like in public, because that is way, like if you can like create a place where people actually go to like see your films, that's where you'll actually like acquire, I guess, the emotional value that the films are supposed to have, like no matter what, because it's just because the distribution is like the most important thing. And like a good example, or like, I don't know, I did a lot of studying about how to do distribution, especially like how the early films were made, like basically how like cinema came from like Nickelodeons and or like the cinemas in like cities and stuff like that. The cinema like they would come from like cinemas that you could go to, and losing my train of thought there.
No,
But yeah,
okay.
no, it was very good. Like they had a very efficient process. A good example, a good story, a good book to reference would be The Genius of the System by a guy named Thomas Schatz.
Okay.
And like they would just the what's interesting I think is that the real way to do what they did that was better what they did that was very good was that like all the studios had their own theaters.
Yep.
So like the real like thing making money was like, you know, going out. It was like people going out and seeing the films. And it's sort of the same thing, but it's sort of the same thing now, but it's like it's decentralized because there's no or because like the ability to do it is quite ubiquitous now, and it's just a matter of fact of do and if you want to do it well you just do it consistently. And I would say the way to handle distribution the way to handle like distribution or like the way to handle like the live event thing is like to like look to like stand-up comedians where they they have like they have like I guess they're able to go and do things like consistently at like I guess different places and stuff. The actually my like a good example of like the strategy that I'm talking about was recorded in a film. Like I made a film to actually explain this or to depict this idea in motion, which was like the Tebi secret show
Okay.
thing. That was the inspiration for it because it's like it's a live event done like no matter what, and like you just like create whatever type of environment that you want for your program or for like however you make your films, and like you just do things that make them that make the environment or that make the event special. And like it's somewhat equates to the idea that you'll hear from like Paul Graham, which is like do things that don't scale. That's where and I mean like the things that happen in person, like they don't really scale because you can't really. I mean, you can put them online, but it's not the same thing.
Right.
And the even the films are sort of like a different, and the films are like they're online, but they don't. Or the films can be online, but you're watching them divorced from like the actual live experience if you're not going out to see them, if you're just watching them at home.
Right. Interesting. And because you mentioned something there that I kind of wanna go into and see. So, your Twitter bio, right, is a weird filmmaker, programmer, hyphenate.
Yeah.
So, tell me about and I want to get into like your programming side. Like, is that? But I don't want to ask the questions there yet. I want to say just when you're making a film, right? And which we'll get to the programming too. Like you're making something, you're building something for the user. Usually that's what the thinking is, right? You're building something for the user, whether they want it or they need it. It's a value, or they don't know that they need it, but it's a value. When you're making films, is that the same approach? Is that the same thing, or is it a complete purely creative instinct that you're just making something that you have to be excited enough to make?
Um. Oh, you mean when it comes like, is it like a? Oh, you mean like for films? For
For
films
films, right? Like,
specifically.
because if you think about distribution, how do you
Yeah.
because how do you make money? How do you make something people want to see?
Yeah.
Because why would
When I
people
was
want to do that? And why would you spend this time? Is it just because it's a self-fulfilling thing?
when I started, it was more. I think it would be more of a self fulfilling thing, but as I've gotten older, I figured out how to. I figured out like that there is like actually like a good. There's a good important thing to making things for like specific purposes, or like making things that, yeah, like you hear about like you hear even in the past, like they made Greek tragedies for like holidays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, the very interesting thing that I think about that like sort of like mixes the two. Well, there's me thinking like, oh, I can figure out how to make a format that fits, that like that people want, that also like fulfills me. But then there's also just the fact that the things that are made that are like creative and art related are basically like they're, in a sense, they're decorations for distribution systems.
Okay.
Like if you like when you go to like the movie theater, especially back in the day, like I mean it's sort of the same now, but I mean like it's much less effective. Like the theater, you would go and there would be, you would go and get your news, you would go and you go and watch your film, you would have like several films that were made, and like there were smaller films that were made to make time or to basically get people like in the mood, or like get people relaxed before watching the bigger films.
Yeah.
And then there's also like the double features and stuff like that. Like you'll hear in like Quentin Tarantino's book, Cinema Speculation,
Yeah.
that like a lot of movies were made for like the double feature circuit. Like he said that like Taxi Driver was made for, or like the I guess the ultimate like spot that like it was made for was the double feature circuit, which, because like that was a revenge film that was in when revenge films were hip.
Yep.
And it was like shown next to this other revenge film of the time.
Right. Right. And I really want to get into programming, but I have one more question.
Yeah.
Before we move on to but well, we can come back always. But are ads films, and animated ads specifically? Would you define them as films?
Oh yeah, I mean it could be like yeah, no, well I mean I guess a film is just a film is just a film. It's just like I think of the term film really refers to like, or it refers more to the mechanism than it refers to like
The format.
its status. I think it's more like film is just like a motion picture, like they call like a film is like a motion picture in the way that they call television programs motion pictures in the credits.
Right.
Because like legally, it's just that it's kind of the same thing.
Okay. Straight answer. Love it. When we look at Vaughn's, life, and we see the chart of animation, go up and up and up, because that's kind of the thing that you're into. Where does programming come into this? How did that become part of it?
Oh yeah, there is so yeah, so I started trying to figure out how to make how to like add like diffusion and like just from machine learning into my filmmaking process, like back in 2023. But in 2023, I was working on I was finishing up the Inspector Tommy cartoons. So like I did some like cursory explorations, but I didn't do anything directly I didn't focus on anything directly until around 2024, and I had much less technical understanding until yeah, I had much less technical understanding about it, and uh, and I was just using like I was figuring out how to do things through Runway, who like I think, especially when I was looking at like what they were doing, like they were on top of their game with like how well their video systems were, and like honestly, I'll say I commend those guys because they're doing a lot of deals with like film studios now. They position themselves very well. And so yeah, I learned how like Runway works. I learned this program called Absinthe. There was a there's a cool animator there's a cool like animator filmmaker. Her name is Mary Yanko.
Okay.
She made a film. I cannot remember them. Well, oh yeah, she made a film called Vovin, and it was like a French film. It was part of the school. It was part of the French school Gobelin, and it was very well done. And it was the first time that I saw like, I guess the story, like inkling of the type of animation that I wanted to start making, and it was her process involved doing this using this program called Absinthe.
Okay.
Oh shit! I need to charge my laptop. 1 second.
No worries.
Uh, yeah. So yeah, no, she used a program called Absinthe. So I started learning how Absinthe worked, and I started trying to apply it to my own films between or to my own like work, mostly experimental, mostly stuff where I was like trying to do experiments between like 24 and 25, and I was trying to figure out how to get the style that I wanted for like a bigger project that I'm doing now. Like basically, I'll say it. I think it will get done. It's kind of morphed over the years. It's a film. Like I basically a film. I'll say it as yeah. No, basically like I've come up with this idea for like a 3 hour film, and I'm like trying to make
Okay.
it in like I'm trying to. I would probably make it in like 20-minute batches or something like that.
Okay.
Basically, just enough so that they can be made like separately, and I've started focusing more on that. So I've been like developing like a lot of the technical stuff that I've been developing was like to get into that, or was to like figure out that. And then what happened was in 2025 I lost access to programs that I was using.
Oh, no.
The which I had like known very well, but just before then I was already like learning like software. I was already like deep on like Twitter, learning about software and stuff, or learning about like the possibilities you can do with software, especially like following Yassine's account. And I so I had just noticed the process where I could vectorize like drawings, and for like a project that I was doing, I had set up also like a website sometime in 25, and I was able to make and I set up a Cloudflare tunnel so I could like just I could just like set up the films to be watched on my computer, and I can turn it off anytime, and it's kind of like it's kind of like its own virtual theater, because like you can turn off the server and it just doesn't work, and then you can, and then so I figured out vectorization, and then once the once I wasn't able to use Toon Boom programs, I was trying to use other programs, but it wasn't the same. And I really like to draw on paper. In fact, most of since like 2020, no, since probably 2019 almost, I or 2019 or 2021 or 22, when like some point between 2020 and 2022, I started like making it a point to do storyboards on paper. And like the storyboards are like where and I would base like the animation would be like would be mostly tracing from the paper. And so I decided that I was using the vectorization in Toon Boom for backgrounds, for like stylizing the cartoon that I was like making there. And it was a cartoon that I made. I hadn't put it on YouTube. Uh, and I don't, at least now, I don't think I would put it on YouTube. I think I would have put like certain ones on YouTube, especially because I was figuring out like story structure as well. But yeah, I figured out that there was like a way to replicate the vectorization thing, and it was in a software library called Potrace. So I made a script that that basically ran like Potrace and Image Magic and like FFmpeg, and that was able to replicate the animation process for me. And not only was able to replicate the animation process, but I was able to replicate it in the way it was almost felt like how animation paper was scanned using, like, they would call it a Xerox process. So they would scan like the animation like line work onto like acetate cells, and that would save them the time that it took to paint them, for example. And so I figured out that, and I figured out more and more technical things, partly because I wanted to, I guess, be more in control of my process, my like film, or my processes, and like just I knew what was possible because of just being on Twitter. And I also was like using like LLMs and stuff, so I was able to focus more on just the design of whatever I was doing, instead of like actually like writing out the things. And like you can figure, and it's not like being lazy and like writing out, it's not being lazy about I guess like how it's done. It's like very particular how anything I make is any of like the bigger projects that I've made is done. But the coding, I would just lose track of everything. So like it's much better for me to design it, and have I like design the spec, and then just have the LLM, or like use an LLM to like write the code. And I lost my train of thought there too.
Okay.
But yes,
So it's interesting. Everything that you're saying, you just kind of picked it up. Like at least that's how he described it. Maybe it was a little bit more difficult, but it looks like you just picked up coding and developing and programming. And I'm just here thinking like, I guess it's not a coincidence that a lot of the software engineers and people in tech in general are very infatuated with like movies and film. And I never understood that. Like, I love movies and film. Don't get me wrong, and I love software and all that stuff. But I never saw the where's the connection, because one seems very artistic and one seems very like logical. You got to do the coding, got to do this. Everything has to be in systems, etc., etc. Whereas film, yes, there's organization, but it's very like it's something you can't really touch. And that's why I was asking, like, is there a science behind your production and your thinking? Because my bigger question is like, and something else I was thinking, I'll let you, take it away, is also like it's interesting that the biggest tech hub and the biggest film hub are right next to each other, right? Like Hollywood and San
Oh
Francisco.
yeah, yeah.
There's got to be some kind of relationship there as well. I don't know which came first. It might be a chicken and egg kind of situation. But yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I think that. Well, I think if you like, I think when people really like making films, they like the technical aspect. They like the technical aspect of making films, and I don't really describe it as a technical aspect, but like it's almost like, well, if you're like the analogy that a closer analogy that feels maybe more in tune with it is like it's like an athlete.
Okay.
It's like athletic, and like there's just the constant reps you put. It's just the constant reps you put in, and then just like the constant. But the when you have all the reps put in, you end up just gaining naturally the technical acumen that you need to like that you like know in which you know where like to push the right buttons to make to get the correct response out of a particular audience, or to get the correct response out of what you want from like a film, or like any piece of like work that are in the conventionally creative fields. So you would so that's probably where that's probably I wouldn't be surprised if that's where it comes in, because like the technical, like, I think it's just that you're able to do technical stuff if you have the technical understanding, and just if you grow the technical understanding, especially, you'll be able to design like technical systems with. I might be veering off the point, but like you might be able to make technical systems like a lot better if you have like a consistent like output, a consistent creative output, because like you will know just how to you'll know just exactly how to design something well. Like I'm sure a lot of like musicians or like music producers, if they like applied themselves, they would be able to do software engineering in the same way. And what was funny was that when I was a kid, I would hear about like the NBA player Chris Bosh like getting into like coding, and I imagine
I didn't know
that
that. That's
he
cool.
probably see. Pardon?
I didn't know that. I didn't know he was into
Yeah.
developing. That's cool.
I think I found that out like in school when I was like 13 or something like that. But yeah, like I imagine that he takes the same technical understanding that he gets from basketball, like into coding, because like when you're doing something consistently enough, you end up like being able to like internalize the actual technical aspects of a given craft.
For sure. And I think there's patterns, right? Like if you're good at something, and you start something new and you're terrible at it, you're terrible because you don't have the context. But
Yeah.
given enough time, I think this individual, as long as this domain isn't in a particular skill level where it just requires like god-given talent or born given talent where like there's not much like I can't dunk, right? Like
Yeah.
as much as I could train, that's not gonna happen. Or if I'm not inclined to sing and hold a note, like I can train, I can probably get there, but or if I'm not really a writer, like I can try to write all the time and I can be good at something else, right? I think there are patterns, and I've noticed that myself too. Like as a
Mm.
newcomer to tech, like yeah, I'm new, but I know the path to learning something new. I know the path of how to get help. I know how to ask for help. I know how to fail.
Yeah.
Whereas like if I was in my 18, 19-year old self learning life and kind of getting into my individuality, and I was getting to tech then, I think tech would be a lot more challenging for me because I need to figure out myself too, right? Like as you're learning this domain, you're figuring
Yeah.
this stuff at the same time, and that's why I
Yeah.
was wondering a bit for you, like your work, how has it evolved based on your own evolution in terms of your individuality, because that leaks in as much as you want to keep your
Oh
domain
yeah.
is like, oh, that's animation. I do that. I'm not that. But as much as you don't want to be in it in your work, you are. Like your work speaks for
Oh
itself.
yeah. I have like I managed to put like allegorical things like to my personal life in my films, like, and like I let the thing is when I was making films when I was making films when I was like 15, 16, it was like during the age where it was during a time where like everybody was making stuff about themselves and like directly about themselves, and I didn't like that. It just seemed kind of too it seemed like that would not be the smartest thing to do, or like it felt somewhere between indulgent or like just too heavy to like be making like cartoons or stuff directly based on yourself when you can like figure out like allegorical ways of thinking about something and turning that into like a film that's entertaining on its own.
Yeah, it's low hanging fruit, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a lot better when there's like bridges and like you said, allegorical expressions. Because at the end of the day, like you can't express something without it
Mhm.
being you, because that's what you're expressing, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's dead. And actually, this was a question I had earlier for you, because I know with artists, this is a pretty big topic, a conversation. But what's your stance between like copying and stealing little items from other films or other animators, and I'm not talking about poor copying and stealing. I'm talking about like the meticulous sniper type of like taking
Oh
and building
yeah.
your own style.
Well,
How do you
it's ev-
what's your ethical stance on that?
I love putting in small references to like other things. Like if you it's very fun if you like putting things if you if you like something, or if you want to like seed in like a reference to something that people can check out later, you can just do that by referencing it in your own work, and like they call it like an illusion or something like that. Like a great example of this is probably the Venture Brothers, which I love because it does this exact reference thing, and I find out more and more things about like that they happen to reference in their own cartoons.
Okay.
And so like I I love just I just love like putting in those references, and I mean it's all the I don't know, I don't have like any there are a lot of people who complain about the ethical thing about like copying or whatever, but like or I don't know.
So I
It's
don't believe
not.
in it. That's why I ask.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
me, I believe even if I copy something that you did exactly, I think it's impossible to copy it may seem like it, but in the way that I implement it, as much as I might think I'm copying exactly you, it will
yeah,
never be you. It will be me. I might be doing a mimic of you, and it comes
yeah,
out terrible. But if mine comes out good and I just used the same inspiration as you, the same thing as you, I added something to that. Now whether you
Yeah,
like it or not, whether and life sucks like that sometimes. Like someone says the same joke as you and it's funny. When you say it, it's not.
yeah.
That's just the nature of life.
There's a thing that I think the guy I think David Letterman he said that about I guess how you figure out how to be yourself in your work is that you try to like copy somebody else, and the parts that you end up failing to copy, in those parts are like the parts that are actually you. And also when you're like studying, you have to copy people's work, and therefore it ends up you have to copy people's work if you want to study well. Like you have to learn how to draw like other people, especially in animation, where like the general thing is that you're supposed to draw in a style that is like already decided. So like you have to be able to draw something in a uniform. You and a group of people have to be able to draw something in a uniform way. That's how the general animation process works.
Nice.
So you kind of have you basically, and especially if you're working on something like on the clock all the time, you have to reference other things to make it like actually to make like the work actually interesting. There's a guy named Jim Shooter who talked about like how Jack Kirby, like the comic artist Jack Kirby. Jim Shooter was actually the one of the editor in chief of Marvel through the 70s and like early 80s. So he's a great guy. He's also like a writer. He started off as like a writer as well. I love that guy. I discovered him. I ended up discovering him like last year. His history. He has like 7 hours. He has probably like 10 hours of like through like 2 videos, a 7 hour and a 3 hour interview. But yeah, he talked about Jack Kirby's work in Fantastic Four. He talks about like, oh, this is a reference to this particular drawing is a reference to something else. And of course he would have a drawing that's a reference to something else, because when you're working on something like super fast, you have to just have like a reference basin of everything that you could reference. And even like cartoonists, like you have Frank Tashlin, who was like a Looney Tunes director, and he also ended up doing like live action film as well, a lot of Jerry Lewis films. He would talk he and like various other like cartoonists like Milton Caniff and stuff like that, they would refer to like a thing called the morgue, where like you would have all of these like newspaper clippings of like things from live action to reference, or just like things to reference in general when coming up with ideas. Yeah. And
Nice.
like everything like everything is sort of, yeah, it's sort of like everything's built on top of everything else. And same with like hip hop is the same sort of philosophy, to the point where like if you listen to like how they took random references or Public Enemy in specific, if you listen to like I think Brother's Gonna Work It Out from what's it called, from Fear of Black Planet, they like the sound design is just like referencing all, or it's taken from all of these things, and they're all making like an original piece
Yeah,
that couldn't have been made like without it. It could have been made without putting all those things together.
for sure. I think hip hop is probably the first modern what's the word I'm looking for? The first modern what's the word? Phenomenon of like I don't know if LLM's the right word, because and what I mean by that is LLMs are combinations, right? It's math,
Oh yeah,
different combinations.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what hip hop did, right? It took a bunch of genres, and it flips them, right? It elongates them, it makes them faster, and then it takes words, and uses the word as an instrument, and then there's singing in it, but sometimes there's no singing in it. There's yelling in it. Then there's the ad lib, which I'm not
Yeah.
sure if hip hop created that or if it came from somewhere. I
It
mean, I know
probably
there was scatting, but I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
if scatting is. I don't know, like so.
It's all like hip hop came from like funk, which came from rock, which came from jazz. It's basically there. I think
Oh,
the
can I say
first
something?
LLM.
Can I say
Oh,
something? Sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
One thing that which really frustrates me, because like in today's world, like EDM, dance music, and all that, for some reason it's separated from hip hop. Like just in general zeitgeist. I'm not saying this, but I feel like in general, if you tell people EDM and hip hop, people think have attitude that these are two different genres. But if you
Yeah.
listen to early hip hop, like
Oh
like
yeah.
like that era of Public Enemy and maybe even just a bit before that,
Yeah.
those are DJs. Like they used to
Yeah.
have DJ in their name. I mean, I think Public Enemy there's a DJ. I forget his name, but um, like they're DJs and they're doing exactly what EDM is doing today.
They have the same techno root as
Yeah,
well.
techno,
Like yeah,
techno as
like
well.
if you weren't referencing something, if you weren't like using samples, like you would be just playing with synthesizers. And I think
Synthesizers.
the synthesizers came from like the German and English like 70s and 80s music.
Yeah,
So like that was just used for the in the context of hip hop at that time.
yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to mention that because I feel like people always like a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people see EDM and hip hop as two separate things, but the history is actually they're the same. So I don't know
They
why we refer to hip hop and EDM as
Vin,
two different music, but
Vince Staples, the rapper Vince Staples references that too. The blue fish, I think the big fish theory.
okay.
That like a specific thing where he's like, yeah, I'm gonna make like something that's directly based in house music, and it's because like house music was like a thing that was part of hip hop culture like early on, and like
See, yeah,
yeah, same sort of techno.
exactly,
I was
exactly.
gonna say that I forgot to that I did. I wanted to complete the part where I was learning like how to code. Where
Yeah.
like I spent the entire summer last year just like mainlining how to learn C, like mainlining C, the language C, and then I just started learning how to understand the syntax. I just did that like forever. I like you read like read code bases. I'll like read this. I read the C book while I typed out like C code from the C book, and then it got to a point where I was able to understand how everything worked, or like how to code, and I guess like how to understand it syntactically, and like you type it out on a computer, write it out. And writing it out was interesting because like I think a lot of my intelligence is in like my hands because of like how many films I've been able to do. It goes back to that technical acumen thing
Yeah.
where like because I'm writing something out, I am able to understand it a lot better because I have all of this history of understanding like exactly what of needing to understand like the contours that actually are effective in making like an effective drawing, like a good drawing. So you end up so like that intelligence ends up like coming into understanding like the syntax if you're writing out code.
Right.
Yeah.
Which yeah, absolutely it makes and the fact that you chose the language C is, you know, kudos to you for the vision, because it seems like now everyone's saying C is the one language that everyone should know. LMs are
Yeah.
great and they can help you, but if you understand C, it seems that it's especially for robotics and mechanics. I don't know if you have any interest in
Yeah.
that, but
Oh yeah. I do because there's a lot of things that you can do to like elevate the thing, the what's it called, like the craft of cinema. So like I started learning microcontrollers as well.
There you go.
So like, yeah.
I love it. I
I
love it.
think C is great because it's like the a language that's it's not only closest to assembly language and but is also like it's like assembly it's like the closest you can get to assembly language because assembly language is like different per machine.
Right.
And so that's why C is so effective, and it's also like relatively simple, and it's also old. It's also like the it's also like a language that's been around for long enough that like a lot of good things were made on C, and you can figure out how they work directly to, as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I kind of, because I'm just noticing we went over an hour, I kind of want to wrap it up because I think we're just
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
continue talking for like 3 hours if we don't end this at one point. So I'm gonna throw a bunch of questions at you, which are kind of the same topic. You answer it or give me back whatever comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, we got a filmmaker, programmer, also maybe going to embedded systems, right? Maybe into electrical engineering again to further the filmmaking and all that. Let's say you make money from animation, right? You make money from it. Do you put the money now into your passion for programming, and then vice versa? Let's say you make money from programming and these system furthering filmmaking, and now do you now take that money and put it into filmmaking, and then I'm throwing a lot at you, but the point here is money because to me
Oh yeah,
this is a very important thing, and I feel like a lot of people have a little bit of like an allergy to money because they're like, oh, I gotta focus on doing the right thing, and you should, but I just feel
yeah.
like you need money, because to do your craft, to do the good thing you're trying to do, you need money. So how does a filmmaker animator think about money and
It's
making money?
exactly the latter. I've I set up the idea to understand to basically like learn like to learn programming. I started getting into learning programming because it's like, yeah, you can learn programming and actually make good money doing like helping out like system like helping people with their software systems or different like technology systems, and then you can put that money towards like you can put that money towards film. And so it's a vertically integrated process. So like you don't have to at least yeah, you don't have to like compromise on whatever you want to do artistically if like your money comes from doing things that people actually need.
Right.
So like so yeah, I would learn how part of like there is the fun aspect of learning how to do there's a fun aspect of learning how to do programming, and then there's like the I know it's useful aspect of
Yeah.
learning how to do programming,
Yeah.
and that leads into being able to like have the ability to make films, run events. Like I have a lot of ideas. I've already like come up with a lot of ideas that are basically about how to do effective events that I want to set up. But it's like you gotta learn. You gotta do programming, or like you gotta be able to get the resources to do that. And so like it's a good way to get resources is to do things that people want. And if you want and like a good thing that people want and something that is within my like ability to do is like programming, because like I I understand like systems well enough
Yeah.
from learning about film and animation and stuff like that. So like and like researching like all the processes, like creating my own processes. So it's like it's just the same philosophy that goes into like figuring out effective or like good like systems,
Love it.
or the good software systems or hardware and basically all the technical stuff, all the technology.
Right, right. I love it. And there you
And
have it.
also a good part is that the technology drives innovation in the arts anyway,
Right.
because that's why like film is such a good technology. That's why film is such a good technology. That's why like hip hop, especially during the 2010s, was ubiquitous because like the software was available and people were able to, and you were able to basically like get production software for free.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's so many things that you can do with technology that like elevates the experience. So it all like, yeah, everything all interacts.
I love it. I love it. Like I really love and thank you so much for your time. I really
No
love
problem.
that you care so much about your craft, and now you found this second craft to support your first craft, and not just support monetarily, like support in terms of furthering it and doing more, which I really appreciate, and that's why I wanted to chat with you. I definitely feel like I've learned a lot. I'm definitely getting a headache from all the information, but I need to now go and learn more about this because I think there's a lot I can gain for myself. But Vaughn, I do want to say thank you so much for your time today, and maybe in the not too long distant future we can do this again, and we can check your new project that you're working on.
No problem. Have a great time, Lurio.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes.